Okay, Thursday night we started learning the dinner of Tisha B'Av itself, but we didn't finish. So basically, bottom line is like this. Tisha B'Av, you're not allowed to eat or drink. You're not allowed to put on perfumes. You're not allowed to wear anything of leather shoes. If any part of the shoe is leather, it's forbidden. Marital relations are forbidden, and therefore it says in halacha, different opinion, but we hold that the woman should be treated like she is when she's a nida, as far as all the what's called the halachos of both at night and during the day. We also learned that you sit on a low stool until 1 o'clock, talking here in LA, well anywhere, it's really 1 o'clock. Unless if you're down under where it's winter, so then midday is probably 12 o'clock. But anyway, like 1 o'clock, you don't sit on a regular chair. You're allowed to go in a car or a bus or something like that, that you're allowed to go on in. Okay, now, what we're up to is, now, because Chazal say, the Tillim says, the Torah makes the person happy. Therefore, it's forbidden to learn on Tisha B'Av, or really starting from tomorrow, 1 o'clock, to learn. You're not allowed to learn any just regular Torah. You're allowed to learn those things that deal with Tisha B'Av. For instance, the book of Eov, it's called in English Job, because over there it's a lot of problems that he had. You can learn Eicha, the Medrash of Eicha. You can learn the third parak of Meid Cotton that also talks about the laws of mourning. You're allowed to learn the Gemara about the destruction of the Bais Din and Gittin and Sanhedrin, and you could read the book of Josephus, or Talmud Yerushalmi, the end of Tainus also deals with it, with the destruction of the Bais Din, the laws of Tisha B'Av. Those things you're allowed to learn. But just to learn regular Torah, which means as follows. Even if you have set shiurim that you do every day, let's say you do Chitas or Rambam, or you do Daf Yomi, whatever a person may do. So you have to do those things tomorrow before 12 o'clock. Afterwards, you could only learn those things. Now, Tisha B'Av after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so those things that you learn on a regular basis, you're allowed to, like Chitas, you're allowed to do after 1 o'clock. In the Murder Shiva, the Rebbe writes to learn it after Tisha B'Av is over. But those things you're allowed to learn. If you have a shir kavua every day, you learn certain particular things. So those things you're allowed to learn, even at Tisha B'Av, but not until afternoon. Okay, now, Tisha B'Av itself, Rambam at night. That's what the Rebbe writes. Now, Tisha B'Av, like we said, there are stages in mourning period. There is Shiva, there's Shloshim, and there's the year. So here it's reversed. The 3 weeks is like the year of mourning. The 9 days is like Shloshim, and Tisha B'Av is like a person sitting Shiva. Now when a person is sitting Shiva, the din is you're not allowed to greet other people. You can't say Shalom Aleichem because they're not having Shalom. So you're not allowed to give somebody Shalom Aleichem who's a mourner, and their mourner can't say to people Shalom Aleichem. Therefore Tisha B'Av, it says you're not allowed to greet people in Tisha B'Av. They say even it's better to stay away even from saying good morning. So it says what happens, what you do, you nod, things like that. But what happens if somebody doesn't know this halacha and they tell you good morning or Shalom Aleichem, so then what you try to do is you No, you just nod your head as if not to be rude, but you really shouldn't be. Tisha B'Av, you don't send gifts. Tisha B'Av, you don't go for a walk. Just not health walks. I'm saying just stam going spazieren. Work should preferably not be done on Tisha B'Av. If somebody is going to lose money, then they could do work on Tisha B'Av. It's better to perform Tisha B'Av things. Even I'll tell you something. Even household chores, halacha says you don't do until 1 o'clock on Tisha B'Av, which means even making beds or preparing meals, let's say, for after Tisha B'Av. All those types of things you really should do after midday on Tisha B'Av. The old Yiddish custom is you don't make up the beds until 1 o'clock, and you don't cook. Now, obviously, if you have people in the house that are eating, little kids, obviously you can make food for them, for breakfast and lunch. But you don't prepare food for after the fast.
You don't start cooking for Rosh Hashanah.
You don't start cooking for Rosh Hashanah.
Grocery.
Huh?
Grocery, what's supermarket?
Supermarkets are allowed to be open because people need food. It's like Chol Hamoed, huh?
Tomorrow they have to close by a certain time?
No, tomorrow they could stay open. Again, stores that people need, like grocery stores or things like that, that could be open the whole Tisha B'Av. Okay, washing we discussed with...
Restaurant is not allowed to be open?
What?
The restaurant is not allowed to be open on Tisha B'Av?
Can a restaurant be open on Tisha B'Av? It preferably shouldn't be, but I'll tell you, there's issues like this. Now, let's take a minute, because... Can a restaurant serve meat during the 9 days? Okay? So a lot of the hashgachas work it out. It changed, by the way, here in LA also. A lot of the hashgachas work it out that they really have what's called a 9-day menu. You know, fish and dairy or parve or whatever it is. But you have to weigh issues. There's what's called minig, and there's halacha. What happens if you don't open during the 9 days for a meat restaurant, let's say, serving meat? And there's a Jew that's not religious. You know, he's not so careful in kosher. I mean, it's a kosher restaurant. He'll go eat in a kosher restaurant. But he wants to have a steak, you know, and you're not going to give him a steak. He's going to go to a treifa restaurant to eat a steak. So now what's worse? Serving the meat during the 9 days, which many times you are allowed to eat during the 9 days, people that have health issues or chola or things like that. So you have to weigh the issues in a very, very careful way to know, you know. So now the question is like this. Can a restaurant be open on Tisha B'Av? They really shouldn't be open on Tisha B'Av because officially they don't want people to eat. Okay? Again, the hashgach of the restaurant has to know what type of clientele the restaurant has. If the restaurant's not going to be open, then they're going to go eat treif. So it's a questionable which one's better. Okay, now...
Somehow, everyone's always closed by Tisha B'Av. Like if anyone has to break their fast, you can't rely on a takeout or to go to a restaurant. Is that a halachic thing or just a default?
First of all, after Tisha B'Av is, let's say here in LA, the fast finishes 8:18, 8:20. What are they going to do? Go and open the restaurant at 9 o'clock? 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock you can't eat yet. I don't know. If they want to, they could be open. Halachically, they could be open. Another thing we learned also, when you wash nagovas in the morning and all things, you only wash to the end of your fingers. The only time you wash the whole hand is if you're washing, if somebody's eating on Tisha B'Av. Let's say they're kids or people that don't have to fast Tisha B'Av. So then, when they eat bread, then they wash the entire hand all the way to the wrist, like you would normally. But otherwise, even on Yom Kippur, by the way, kids or adults that are dangerously ill that need to eat, even on Yom Kippur, you wash all the way to the wrist. Otherwise, you wash till the end of the fingers, but if you're washing for bread, then you're allowed to do it. Okay, next is like this. Now, Shachris in the morning of Tisha B'Av, so we don't put on talis and tefillin. Some Sfardim do, privately, whatever.
You said you don't what?
Put on talis and tefillin in the morning. Okay, that's the Ashkenazi custom for sure. Some special people did, some Sfardim do privately, but again, there's so many different customs even amongst the Sfardim of what they do. But in the Ashkenazic circles, we daven Shachris without talis and tefillin. And again, Tisha B'Av is no tachnun. So tomorrow afternoon at Mincha there's no tachnun. Tisha B'Av is no tachnun. So you daven. So now, even let's say when you say Baruch Sha'amar, normally you hold your tzitzis or your, from the talis, or if you're wearing a talis cotton, you don't kiss the tzitzis by Baruch Sha'amar. You don't kiss the tzitzis by Shema. It's a regular Shachris, no talis and tefillin, through Shemoneh Esrei. When the Chazan repeats the Shemoneh Esrei, he says Aneinu. In the repetition, the Chazan says Aneinu. At Tisha B'Av in the morning after Shmona Esrei, after the repetition, so then you say half Kaddish in this Torah reading. There's 3 aliyahs in Parshas Eschanon, and the 3rd aliyah is Haftorah, actually Maftir. It's the only day of the year besides Yom Kippur that there's a Haftorah in the morning and at Mincha. Shachris and Mincha is only 2 days a year that you have Haftorah both at Shachris and Mincha, and that is Yom Kippur. You have the Haftarah in the morning, and then you have Maftir Yena. Tisha B'Av, there's a special Haftarah in the morning, and then you have the regular fasting Haftarah at Mincha time. So it's the only day of the year. So you have 3 aliyahs, then you say Kaddish, and the guy says, the guy says the Haftarah. Then you bring the Sefer Torah back into the Heichal, okay? And then you're supposed to say Kinnis. There's a whole book of Kinnis. Ideally, people should say Kinnis until 1 o'clock. Ideally. That's what it's supposed to be. And then you finish up some part of Shachris, Asher Volotzion. You say the Mishnayos Kaddish. Then at Mincha, what? Aleinu Shabbat do Shachris. You do Asher Volotzion Aleinu, and then the Mishnayos Kaddish, if there's mourners that say Mishnayos Kaddish. But again, you don't even use the regular Mishnayos at night, and during the day until midday you do the the last Mishnah of Merit Cotton. Then you say, okay, so then that's it. After midday, you can sit again back on the chair. All the other dinim of Tisha B'Av apply until nightfall, but after midday you could sit on a regular chair. What? Yeah, some people could daven after 1:30. You could daven mincha. So some people have an early mincha in Tisha B'Av. But then, what you do Tisha B'Av, let me first explain what we do at Tisha B'Av. Now, Tisha B'Av, in the afternoon, whenever you're davening mincha, so you can't miss a day of talis and tefillin. So you put on talis and tefillin before mincha. You finish up shachris, because we didn't finish up part of shachris. We say the Yom, we say Enkel Akeinu. In Chabad we say the Tilim of the day, the day Tilim. And then, while we're still wearing the Rashi's Tefillin, we get ready for Mincha. We say Korbanos, and then we say Mincha, half Kaddish, Torah reading, half Torah, bring the Sefer Torah back, and then you finish Mincha, you're still wearing Rashi's Tefillin, and then after Mincha, you have to make sure it's before sundown, you have to put on Rabbeinu Tam's Tefillin like you would every day. Those that wear Rabbeinu Tam's Tefillin, put on Rabbeinu Tam's Tefillin after Mincha, but it has to be, you have to make sure to do it before Shkia. What? Yeah, when you put on, correct. When you put on Rashi's Tefillin, you say the 3 chapters of Shema, because you want to say them in Tefillin. And then you finish up Shachris, and then you daven, get ready for Mincha, daven Mincha. There's no Tachnun, and therefore there's no Avinu Malkeinu at the end of Mincha either. And then you daven Ma'ariv. Then you break your fast. But you're not allowed to eat meat or drink wine until the 10th day of Av this year is Wednesday, 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock is when the laws of the 9 days, because again, the Beis HaMikdash was lit Tisha B'Av in the afternoon and burned through until sundown on the 10th. So until midway of the 10th, Chacham was strict that all the laws of the 9 days, no meat, no wine, no music, no swimming, all that stuff, applies until 1 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon. Then, meat, wine, music, swimming, whatever. Now, what happens if somebody, I got a bunch of calls about that already, what happens if somebody is leaving in the morning early, the poskim bring down, in time of great need, you could do laundry in the morning. Huh? Wednesday morning. Tuesday night for sure not. Tuesday night you cannot do any laundry. I just got a call before, somebody had an interesting question. This b'chal can happen to anybody. This particular case was they're flying from England, not to LA, to another city in the States. And They're flying on Tisha B'Av. So England, don't forget, is 10 hours ahead of us. So at St. Louis, I think there's maybe 8 hours. I think there's Chicago time. So they're 8 hours. England is 8 hours ahead of them. They're flying back and they're coming and landing on Tisha B'Av here. So technically, once they land on Tisha B'Av here, they have to keep fasting. So basically, they're going to be fasting another 8 hours, which is not a smart thing to do. If you want to do it, go the other way, and then you go 8 hours less. But b'chlal, you shouldn't be flying on Tisha B'Av.
You should encourage their piety, Rabbi.
If you cross the date line, you don't have a Tisha B'Av.
No, I mean, you get another 8 hours.
It's very good. So now, what happens though if it's a person can't fast another 8 hours? It's a long time, Tisha B'Av. So there is a linear, I'm not pasking on this, I'm just saying their opinions. There are opinions in halacha that say that, it's interesting, while he's still on the plane, if Tisha B'Av finished in England already, he can eat while he's still on the plane, if Tisha B'Av finished in England. Why? Because there's a din in halacha, until you come to a place, you're still bound by the place you left. Until you come to the place, until you land. But once they land on Tisha B'Av, then they have an issue again. There's Tisha B'Av here, so they would have to continue fasting. So it's a whole problem. Even though that din, by the way, is very difficult to understand. Because, I'll give you a simple example. If somebody flies from here to Israel, yeah, and all of a sudden on the plane it becomes light. Okay, but don't forget, you're flying, let's say from here, so you're getting to New York in 3 hours, and so eventually it's going to be light on the plane, right? But in LA, it's still dark. It's still night in LA, right? So the question is, can I daven shachris when it's light outside on the plane? If I'm going by LA time, by me it's still dark.
It has to be light on the ground though, because you're way above the horizon.
I understand, but it's light on the ground. Where you're going, the sun's shining. But the question is, if you go by the place you left until you land, that means you still have a din of LA. If it's LA, then it's still night. How can you daven shachris? The pearl, everybody does do that. So it's a very interesting din when you say this, when you say that. What?
It's where you are at the moment.
Technically, it's not where you are at the moment. It's where you left from. Because then, wherever you are, when the guy is flying over St. Louis, then he really should have to keep Tisha B'Av again.
What's the basis of this thing?
Of what? Because the Gemara says in Psachim, the Mokum Shenoagus. So the Gemara says, when you come to a new place, you accept the customs of the place you are. But until you get to the place, if there's different customs. Gemara says, until you come to the place, you land, so to speak, whether by car, donkey, or whatever it is, until you land in that place, you have a din of the place you left from. If it's the din, it's late. Is it that place you left from, so then it's a problem.